Hi Nick, welcome to the Elder Tree podcast. It's so great to have you here today. Thanks for joining us out of your beautiful garden on this sunny day.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about today. There's a lot that I want to cover, but I'd love to just start with hearing a bit about your background and what's the spark and what's led you to create these beautiful offerings that you have now.
So basically I started as a chef. From 14 to like 25, I was a chef. And I went through this massive journey of living within that, which is a journey of its own as being a chef, but then wanting to understand where like the food I was actually cooking and preparing came from, and wanting to understand how it was grown and the process it actually took to do that. Because normally when you're working in these high-end kitchens, you just see a lot of produce come in from all over the different places without actually understanding the fundamentals of like the nutritional value of it, what it's been sprayed with, what it took to grow, and how it actually got to you. So I went on a journey of trying to understand that, which led me into strawberry farms, banana farms, growing coffee, and all of these commercial agricultural farms, I guess, like monocultures. After a while of that, I got a little bit frustrated and ended up in Peru, where I was staying with like a small indigenous village, understanding and seeing the way they looked at food and medicine as something that wasn't separate. Like every tree had more than one use, and every tree was seen as not only food but seen as medicine. So that very much opened my eyes to the way that we looked at food, of just like food was one thing and medicine was another, and plants just had a singular use and was looked at through a singular lens, to opening myself up to a broader sense of consciousness towards what nature actually fully provides when we tap into the culture and the knowledge that each plant really has. Beautiful.
And so within that you've learned a lot about food and medicine, this like crossover between food and medicine, because often they're quite separated, right? So like for you, like where are they separate, and where do they unite? Like where's the meeting point of food and medicine?
Well, to me it's like I spent a little bit of time studying naturopathy. It was the wrong time in my lifetime, but in that broad piece of me studying that, I learned a lot about Hippocrates and Hippocrates' principle, like let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. Like, so through that, I've always looked at it through this lens. However, the overconsumption of anything and food isn't really the best thing. So just the simple crossover of looking at different leaves and roots and fruits. So to me, I tend to see food as the direct form of medicine. As well as looking at that food as like not just something that we can eat, but it's also the simple herbal teas that we can consume.
Yeah, beautiful. That's kind of something that's been missing in our culture, right? Like in Ayurveda, it's quite popular. Like they work with their food to like restore balance in the body, like restore like when you've got like too excess dryness or excess moisture or heat or cool, different kind of tissue states and constitutions and things like that. We can use them for balancing, but there's not a lot of like education around that, really, is there?
No, not overly. Like I haven't really seen too much like mainstream concentration on allowing edible plants be medicine. Yeah, it
kind of gets like it's getting like reduced further and further. Like it's like food and medicine are kept separate, and then it's like food's even getting just reduced down into just like its nutrients, and then into supplements and pills and powders and packets, and we're losing touch with like even like fresh food. So this whole concept of food being medicine, it's probably like quite confusing to a lot of people that don't actually get their food from nature and don't even know how something's growing or what it looks like. I remember when I first found beetroot when I was like 15, and I saw my first beetroot plant and asked someone what it was. They're like, it's a beetroot. And I was like, what? And I didn't even know that beetroot was a root, even though it says it in the name. I had no idea with my upbringing that beetroot was a plant, and that it was like a root vegetable, and that you could eat the leaves. And It's just interesting. A lot of people are not in the kind of world like what you're in. They're in a very different kind of world. So it's wonderful that you've got your online platforms and different mediums for exposing this. And what for you do you think is like the biggest like aha moments for people when they come into it, or the real like turning point that makes people want to get involved in fresh food and medicine?
I genuinely think the last few years, with some of like the global geopolitical events and events that have kind of been happening, has been a large amount of awakening for a lot of people, especially towards the masses, of like understanding supply chains and understanding what happens to supply chains in cases of major global events. So I feel like within that, there's also been a movement of this whole like resilience, as well as understanding food as medicine, understanding like how the freshness, like for some reason the world has so much opportunity to have so many different foods and resources from all over the place, yet for some reason like our diseases and our sicknesses are only really rising, which to me, I feel like a lot of people are having that aha moment of like, well, like this food that we're so readily able to get supplied to us is it really the best quality food for us, especially by the time it gets grown in monoculture practices and delivered via supply chains for however long, or forcibly ripened in some cases? Is that actually the food that's nurturing and taking care of us? Or is there another form of food or an outlet to get that food where you actually taste and feel different from that?
Yeah, I think we're quite blessed that we live in a part of the world that has farmers markets, and we can kind of get directly local from a lot of farmers, and also blessed to live in a part of the world that has like good soil quality and things like that, so that we can grow. There's a lot of people out there living in cities or in urban settings that maybe don't have so much access to or even understand like the benefit of eating locally, seasonally and organically. And there's something that we've spoken about prior to this around the availability and accessibility of not just food, because there's a lot of talk around food security and eating seasonally, locally, organically in people that are really live a life with those values. There's a lot more focus with food, but then in the medicine side of things, there's a lot less. In Australia, there's a lot more ignorance, for want of a less judgmental sounding word, but there is a lot of people don't really consider where their medicine's coming from. And as we've spoken about 95% of what's in circulation in Australia, like on the shop shelves and the practitioners and, what's in the supermarkets even, like over 95% of that's being imported. So, and most people don't even know that figure. And I'm just curious for you, like do you have any suggestions on like how we can like how we can turn this around so that we have more medicine available? And maybe part of it is like bringing the food and the medicine together more. And just curious to hear your thoughts on some.
To me, it's like radical self-accountability in a way. It's like, I say it like as in radical, as in like, it seems like it's a radical movement now to actually be accountable for what we consume. And that, like you said, it's like challenging to do that when you're in a city, or when you're living away from really good soil or in a different setting. I'm very privileged to be able to say these things, but any small step forward, or like a pot of herbs on your balcony, like if everyone just took a little bit of accountability towards creating their own resources, creating what they consume, that itself would make a massive change and a massive difference. I was blown away at the whole 95% of Australian herbs and herbal medicine is completely imported, because if you look at it today, it's like a very trending market. Like this whole Whole Foods and herbal medicine, everyone's kind of opening their eyes to the benefits of that. And I wouldn't say moving away and demonizing Western medicine, but a lot of people are now seeking natural alternatives. We're seeing it as 95% of that is coming from overseas. it's a very strong disconnect, and it almost seems like a trending market rather than like a sustainable market for humans to actually have a connection towards.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like as a shift in priorities. You know, you talked about like self responsibility. Though for me as well, when I hear that and hear what you have to say, it's kind of like not just a self-responsibility, but kind of like a community responsibility or a earth responsibility, you know, like, because it's not, what we're doing isn't sustainable. And with like the growth of like the population and, you know, it's like there's so much fossil fuels required to import all these herbs and things, and there's so much that even like happens to the herbs on their way in, you know, like all the radiation and fumigation and just like all the storage, all the different places they're stored in, just like in the sun or like, you know, not being stored right. There's a lot of issues with the impact on the herbs and then the impact on our health, but also the impact of the health like as a community and as a planet as well.
And inflation. Like that means every single bit of food that we eat, every bit of medicine that we have is subject to inflation. When fuel prices go up, when supermarkets or shops dictate the price, our health and our resilience in every way, shape or form is dictated by global inflation, which basically leaves people like stuck in a way of like, well, anyone who wants to start living a different lifestyle now just has to work more to be able to afford their own human basic needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And the kind of irony in that is like the way that we've got ourselves a lot into this funk is that we're purchasing from overseas because it's cheaper, you know, because the labor, like the currency difference and things like that is like really different. But maybe it's a motivational factor for people right now with the fuel prices rising and certain prices rising, because to be able to just grow your own garden is like, you know, the costs nothing compared to what it costs to, you know, be having to outsource all of this. So yeah, it's something I think I've kind of maybe just gone a little bit ahead of myself. And I just love, just for our listeners that aren't familiar with some of like the key concepts behind what you do, I'd love to hear like a bit about like the difference between, because I know you work with like permaculture and agroforestry, and some of our listeners might not be familiar with agroforestry. Would you be able to tell us like what the difference is between the two, the philosophies and the application of like the two?
Yeah, of course. So permaculture is basically its own school. It's kind of taken from a lot of indigenous plant growth methods, same with agroforestry and syntropics and all these things. How permaculture is more about creating this permanent regenerative structure of being able to grow and develop ecosystems and food, whereas agroforestry is more targeted on creating a really well, like it's agroforestry, it's in the name. So like you're creating a forest. You're basically using agriculture within a forest-based system so that you're driving ecological succession and also growing your own human basic needs in that. So a lot of it's based off of photosynthesis, maximizing photosynthesis, creating fodder for animals, food, fibers for building, as well as pharmaceuticals. So interacting in this forest growth method where you're regenerating the earth, you're growing your own mulch, you're growing your own fertilizers, you're fixing nitrogen, you're storing carbon in the ground, you're maximizing the amount of photosynthesis, the maximum amount of growth per square meter, as well as not really needing this input to come from elsewhere. Like very much similar to permaculture using chop and drop methods, but agroforestry is more targeted at this multi-layered succession of driving forward a forest-like system that humans can actually interact with.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, it's creating that whole ecosystem and yeah, it's so what's your ways that you bring medicine, because a lot of people in those spaces in permaculture and agroforestry and syntropic and a lot of these like kind of renewable agricultural systems, there's still like in Australia at least, there's still a primary focus on food that I've found at least. And so yeah, bringing like with the medicine in the piece, what do you have in your garden? What are you kind of growing for medicine, or what can be implemented into these systems well?
Well, for my main garden, I've created it as a seed bank. So I always knew that I was going to be moving out. So I very much used the space to create multiple plants that I could take cuttings with, or I could grow root crops that I could take with me and use it as a seed bank. So the backbone of it is a lot of like black cockatoo food and koala food and native habitat, so that I can leave that behind. But within that, I also have a massive understory of herbaceous plants like lemon balm, tulsi, valerian roots. We grow a lot of mint, spearmints, different types of geraniums, and a lot of essential oil type of crops.
Beautiful. Yeah. Are you making essential oils?
Not at the moment, no. Yeah, that's definitely a dream that we'd like to move towards in the future. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that will very much come once we move out to our own community to the land. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you've just put in some new beds for your calendula as well, right?
Yeah, just did. Yeah. Late season crop. We did really well with our calendula this season, had a lot of support. So we've just, me and my daughter actually went out and created some new beds and planted some calendula in yesterday. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, it's funny the timing, because this afternoon we're going out to the elder tree garden to plant out a big bed of calendula there as well.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that's exciting. As well, like how do you adopt like herbs in, like comfrey, yarrow, things like that for making fertilizer preps or for tending for the soil, or
So we grow comfrey as well as yarrow. Comfrey is a great diamic accumulator, also nitrogen rich leaves to continue chop and drop, but we also use it for its healing properties and make balms with it for like wound healing, bumps, bruises and sprains. Same with yarrow. We make like a really nice balm for yarrow to soothe sore muscles and stuff like that.
Beautiful. Are they available online to purchase?
Yeah. So we're setting up our online shop right now, but we're just currently taking orders through my social media while we're building that platform.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of wheels in motion. Yeah.
Beautiful. Something as well that I know, we've been talking about food as medicine, and for some people maybe that's a bit conceptual, or often from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's like the food that you eat having an effect on your body. But something that a lot of people don't know about, that I know that you do, is around fruit trees being a source of medicine, the different parts, the leaves and the seeds and the barks and the roots and things like that of common food. Fruit trees and food sources is also, it can be used medicinally specifically for different conditions or in different applications. And I believe you're even writing an ebook currently about this exact topic, which is a bit exciting. So would you tell us a bit about your ebook and also just about like the concept of this and share a bit about that?
Well, so the ebook was kind of birthed out of very much wanting people to have some knowledge, even those without their own bit of land, with just access to everyday fruit trees like mulberries or pomegranates or guavas or soursops or kind of whatever was around them, even figs for medicine as well. Just like we all probably interact or see these trees or plants day to day, especially those with gardens or community gardens close. And I just wanted to kind of connect those dots to food and medicine for people, especially building resilience and moving away from constantly needing to consume or, supply chain based systems. So you can use pomegranates as this incredible antibacterial. You can just chew on them. They're great for gum health. They're great for teas. There's so many different fruit trees that we can actually use as everyday teas and preserve their leaves so that we don't need to continue to consume microplastic filled tea bags or go buy things. It's very much removing ourselves from this consumer system and understanding that nature kind of provides so much more, especially within these fruit trees. It's not just the fruit. Quite often the most medicinal part is actually the leaf. Yeah, so that's kind of where this ebook kind of got birthed, was just wanting to kind of connect the dots for people of, hey, like if you've got this around, did you know you can actually eat those leaves and they're really high in iron and
Yeah, so the nutritional value as well of them. And often it's like the waste products, it's the bits that we're throwing away, on a meat level, it's the bones and the organs and all of that actually hold more of the, nutritional benefits. And then the same, often people are peeling their potatoes or, like getting rid of the seeds of the pawpaw. But, pawpaw is, I suppose, a good example of like an anti-parasitic. A lot of seeds are, but even pumpkins as well, like the
yeah.
seeds being antiparasitic. And do you have any other examples for
soursop? I mean, soursop is 25 times the benefit of chemotherapy itself.
Yeah.
Like just blueberries as well. It's like as soon as they actually end, they start to turn crimson color. And at that point, they're the highest amount of antioxidants that you can really find. So
the leaves?
The leaves, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
You actually had a post go viral recently, didn't you, about strawberry leaves?
Talking about strawberry leaves,
yeah.
So strawberry leaves contain more antioxidants than the berry themselves. There are also oxalates in strawberry leaves, but there's oxalates in most vegetables. So if you're concerned about it, normally a quick blanch to make pesto or cooking it, phenomenal. But they're an amazing source of iron. I believe there's also magnesium, there's folic acid, there's all of these incredible things within strawberry leaves themselves. Yeah.
And then we can kind of access that year round, like a lot of these fruiting trees and fruits and vegetables and things can just kind of have a season that they're available and fruiting and ripe and ready to harvest. But whereas like for at least in the subtropics especially, generally leaves are available year round,
Yeah.
So that's kind of that accessibility and being able to have it fresh.
Yeah,
from
well,
the garden.
even still, it's like mulberries and blueberries are both deciduous trees. So right before they're about to drop, so the blueberries, they turn that crimson color right before they're about to drop. So that's a sign of like, well, you're not really taking away from photosynthesis because all those leaves are about to actually just drop. So you can go through and harvest a good amount of those leaves. I wouldn't ever harvest all of them, but if it's a deciduous tree, go through and harvest most of those leaves, leave some on so it can still receive some last minute photosynthesis, and you've got tea for the whole winter. So it's just this kind of incredible method. Like, yes, I know that it's almost like this returning to how I guess our ancestors once lived or could have lived, where the trees are telling you, hey, like, I'm about to drop my leaves, I'm really high in medicine, come collect me. And you actually collect them, and then all of a sudden you've got the medicine you needed to get through the winter. You've got the vitamin C, the antioxidants, all of these incredible compounds that are actually going to support your system through the change of the seasons.
Beautiful. I just feel like I need to do a quick check and just make sure that everything's on and recording, and I can edit this out. Yeah, I just had this little paranoia that like something had switched off maybe, and then you lose the whole thing, so it's still going.
We made it.
All right, so how do we work with those? Like, how do you fig or blueberry, mulberry leaves and a lot of these things, like, how do you just like eat them fresh on the plant? Do you dehydrate them, powder them, put them in a smoothie? Like, what do you do?
Well, so for oxalic acids, you don't exactly want to be over consuming anything, especially like over time they could cause kidney stones. But through just simple blanching or cooking methods, you remove a lot of those oxalates. So it's not something you want to overly consume all of the time. However, I like mulberry leaf tea is like my absolute favorite. Mulberry leaves are like my favorite cooking green in general. Like, it's kind of like this regenerative kale. You plant it once, you get leaves forever. You can keep planting it from cuttings. They're so tasty. The flavor's absolutely incredible, and they're really diverse. Like, you can use them for dolmatis. You can fry them up really crispy. You can just put them in simple soups, stews, curries. Most leaves can just disappear in a smoothie. But yeah, in terms of preservation, I very much like to dehydrate them, either sun dry them or a dehydrator, and then store them away and use them for tea.
Great. So you do use a dehydrator. We kind of need to in the tropics, right?
You kind of do, yeah. Like, you get sun windows, but like at the end of the day, we'll use a dehydrator if we really need to. Like, I've always wanted to experiment with one of those like sun dehydrators, but like you said, in the subtropics, you very much need that to be in the right position.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for sharing about that, and I look forward to your ebook
Cool,
when it comes out. Yeah, it's so good. I feel like it's a very a conversation that needs to be had, or like, awareness to be raised, and there's so many things that we could be reducing our consumption, and not just like over relying on an external source for, but just also like, or even just like the packaging alone, of things, and just as simple as going out and just getting it, from your, all that stuff's fresh, all the chlorophyll and all the vitamins and everything is just like, right there, it starts to rapidly deteriorating as soon as you have dried things and stored things for a period of time. And so, yeah, fresh, vital medicine and food's the way to go. My next question for you is just around resilience, because you used the word resilience before, and just curious, like for you, like what you mean when you say resilience, or like what is a good marker of resilience? Like what does it mean to be resilient?
Well, to touch exactly on what you said of like not always being reliant on an external source to provide your own basic needs. I don't mean it in a way of like everyone has to be fully self-sufficient. Like self-sufficiency by yourself can be a recipe for burnout, though doing it within community is really great. If you have neighbors and you're all growing a little bit of stuff and then you're all trading a little bit of stuff, like that to me is resilience. So if like if we use COVID as an example, like lockdowns happen or the floods here in Northern Rivers, when we had the floods, like so many people were completely shut off from shops, so many people were completely flooded in. If you're completely dependent on a supply chain, how are you going to eat? How are you going to have your medicine? Where's your first aid coming from? Like, if you have a first aid thing sitting on your sink, great. But also understanding which herbs you can wild forage, understanding what herbs you have that you can actually use. That to me is really resilience. It's rooted in not so much this radical like stepping away from the system, but understanding inside of that system to have steps and processes in play so that if something did ever happen, you're not really just going without and you have a way to actually survive and meet your own basic needs for yourself.
Absolutely. So it's kind of like self-sufficiency, but also what I was hearing is kind of like a community sufficiency as well, like being able to know who you can rely on and trade and things like that, and that and that's where I suppose community comes in, especially when you do have times of crisis, like a flooding really tests the community resiliency, doesn't it? It tests the individuals. It's like, well, how much actual practical knowledge do I have? Sure, I know how to use a computer or but like actually like basic survival skills, like how to actually survive is like a huge thing that's not often tested in our very convenient, comfortable modern world. Even for us hippies, we're kind of like got our electricity and our running water and everything's like super convenient, and so it's good when we have these test runs in testing our resilience and during COVID as well, like that. Because I was up in far north Queensland when that happened, and I was having like all these doctors suddenly coming to my workshops, and I was always having always had nurses, but there was suddenly like MDs and paramedics and like a lot more like classic mainstream practitioners coming along that were like kind of questioning the healthcare system and not quite sure, they were just like, well, what happens if we don't rely on that? Like, what are we left with? Hang on, I actually came into this job, and the story I kept hearing from them was like, I came into a healthcare system because I wanted to help people and I wanted to support health. And I'm now seeing that they were having revelations around feeling that they weren't actually part of a healthcare system. And so then they were kind of stripping it back to basics of like, well, then, am I actually equipped to help people without pharmaceuticals and without all of these modern, contraptions and machines and diagnostics and all of this stuff. So they started coming along to like our weed walks and medicine making things like that, and being like, okay, like walking along, here's a herb, great, put the herb on the thing, like our ancestors did, before all of this modern kind of intervention and commercialization, industrialization, and for me that's like so liberating, like, and I love seeing that aha moment when someone's like, hang on, this is just like everywhere, and like if I am, like plantain's like great example of this, like, a spider bite cut, plantains growing in most places that I go. In Australia, like one of the species is growing, and that's like a great, kind of entry into like first aid or just like basic application. And so it's very empowering, when you can have those moments of feeling like, even if I don't have a phone or a I don't know, like running water or whatever, if I don't have access to the medical system, I don't have access to a supermarket or, you know, all of this, like, yeah, it's so empowering to be able to build that resilience in yourself and then kind of knowing who you can rely on and building that as a community together as well. So, yeah, but there's kind of like, it feels like even after COVID, we got comfortable again culturally, you know, a lot of people like, the priorities shifted. They went back to work, or they kind of reintegrated after all that kerfuffle that happened. And so, you know, we don't want to have to rely on an apocalypse to like
we shouldn't
to like realign our values into a more functional, resilient way of being. But yeah, like I'm just curious from you, like what do you think needs to happen to actually like wake up society for us to actually like align our values in a lasting kind of way towards like resilience and community sufficiency and things.
Well, first of all, like I think an apocalypse is like kind of like the fastest way to make that happen, because even those who haven't yet like had that aha moment, they start to see the cracks in the fabric of it, which it's like it's a really tricky question, as like exactly as you explained. It's like there was so many aha moments through the global pandemic, and then all of a sudden like there was this big push to grow food, create community resilience, have our own medicine, build all this knowledge, and then everything just kind of like went back to normal. You know, it's like hold on a minute, like we could have really created something within that. And I think something was created within that. Like there's very much something in everyone's back of their mind, but with these kind of comforts and freedoms that kind of come without being in a lockdown or a global pandemic, there's no urgency to be like, oh my God, I should build this knowledge. Like it's a really tricky one, because to me it's almost like this sense of returning, like living this way. And since I went through these aha moments and I started to educate myself and even educate others, it's like this movement of people choosing to return, not back to this like old time romanticizing, like back when we had no power or anything, but having this simple understanding and knowledge of these things that our ancestors probably passed down for years and years and years, until we ended up in this like post-industrial kind of era where everything's provided for us and we can just sit on a computer and type things out or get AI to do everything for us. And we've lost that connection to where our food's from, our medicine, or that passed down knowledge. So to me, I guess the apocalypse would be the fastest, easiest way if we took away all those consumer distractions. But apart from that, like, it would really just take people wanting to really change. And it would take people actually saying, like, I value this and I see it as something that's really important. And so I would like to preserve this knowledge and make sure that my kids and their kids can actually have this knowledge and live this lifestyle.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, you're saying that an urgency needs to be an urgency. There needs to be something that like drives us to like, okay, we need a bit of something to give us motivation. And at the moment, it's like a lot of people are kind of already in a mild zombie apocalypse. They're already just like, oh, well, you know, I can get Centrelink, or I can get handouts from the government will take care of me, or, you know, I can just like, I'm, you know, don't have to like too much do this stuff, because supermarkets always going to have their shelves full of food. Like, you know, all the health food shop or the whatever's is going to be stocked up. So, you know, but then they're reliant on that. So, you know, it's like what I was saying the other day, that compliance creates reliance, and it's like you just kind of just complying to this system and not even questioning it, because it's just what you do. It's comfortable, it's easy, and it's also why would you make extra work for yourself? You know, why would you create all these extra steps when you can just go down the shop and get the thing? Like, for some people, they're not really seeing that, and so, you know, I feel like it needs to be like the shift in values, kind of like what you're saying. And like, if you're shifting that value onto future generations, like thinking about your children's children, and like, what kind of world are we leaving for them? You know, when you kind of start having that, you know, 7 or however many generations to come kind of mindset, that for me, that creates the urgency. Like that's not just like the quick fix, like, oh, well, if it's going to bring me benefit in the next year, maybe I'll consider it. That this selfishness that's kind of like self-centeredness and that's embedded in our ultra independent society, but if we're like thinking about the whole ecosystem, like the ecosystem of like, non-linear ecosystem of like our future generations and the community as a whole, then it like, that should create an urgency. And I don't know how to wake that up in people,
I think it's slowly happening to like touch on this of everyone feels this financial squeeze, like every single year, like there's inflation happening, prices go up for everything. And then it's really funny because you're talking like, oh, well, people don't want to move into this way of life because it's more work. Well, so is inflation, but it just depends who you want to work for. Like no matter what we choose to do in life, we're going to be busy. So what do you want to be busy doing? Do you want to be busy working really hard so that you can pay for your basic needs? Or do you want to be busy connecting to the land while you provide your basic needs?
So what are some kind of like, I suppose, tangible, actionable things for any listeners that are listening to this and thinking like, wow, I'm so in the system, or I'm so reliant and compliant and not feeling resilient, not feeling connected and capable. So what are some like really like kind of tangible steps, that people can action to like start, moving towards this?
Yeah, well, like buy some pots and put some soil in it. Get a raised garden bed if you're stuck on size. Like a vertical garden is a great way to start. Talk to your neighbours, see what they're doing. Join a community garden. If you know someone who does have land, I'm sure that they're not going to mind if you're like, hey, I'd really like to put in a crop. I'll maintain it. We can all share some medicine. Really just like expand your thinking beyond this whole like, well, I don't have land or I don't have access to land. Because there is so much land out there. There's all of like Gorilla Garden, it's like
Birdside Road,
all of this stuff. Like it's actually like really quite simple, and it may sound privileged of me just saying that, but like I rent land. I'm a person renting land. Within that, I have an agreement with my landlord that like, hey, like this is what I want to do, and he's like, I don't mind. Like he owns the land, he trusts my vision, and he knows that he's going to get food security and medicine from it. And even when I leave, there's going to be habitat for wildlife and animals that's going to be growing there. So to the right mind, like that is just a win-win. So it's kind of like expanding your horizons and actually like chatting to your neighbors, chatting to your friends. Like you don't have to go as hard as you possibly can. Not everyone needs to be doing everything. But just a small like pot on like a balcony in the middle of a city wherever you are is like a statement in itself, let alone trading that with your next door neighbor who could potentially be growing something else. Yeah, beautiful. There's some really great